Hello again. I am going to take a few minutes now to talk to you about the project calendar. So now that you have gone through all the steps of and filled out the project design overview, and you have all these pieces in for your project, the next step is to kind of plan it out and apply dates and times to each of these events that are on the overview. We talked about, incorporating the reflective processes with the charrette protocols and the gallery walks and things like that. But you're also going to write in your key concept and understanding. You're going to identify where you're going to talk about those, and you're going to write in your assessments. You're going to write in all the pieces, including the resources and when those will be introduced from this document. So there is an example or a printout of a calendar on page 131 of your book, and that's just a copy of one if you wish to use it. But if you look at page, excuse me, they're sticking together, page 73 of your book, there is an actual example project calendar that you can review before you start to create your own as well. Some of the things that you need to make sure that you're aware of is in your calendar, you're going to make sure that you put a place for an entry event. And remember, that entry event is the launch of the project. What are you going to do to provide that wow factor for your kids that's going to get them excited about this project? So you're going to want to include the entry event and the date in which you're going to present the idea of this project. You're going to talk about, throughout the calendar, you're going to outline your daily teaching and learning tasks, including the formative assessments that's going to go along with that. So you're going to outline those details, but then you're going to tie in, how am I going to know if my students have accomplished this task? And how are they going to know? How are they going to be able to reflect and modify so that they are producing quality processes and products? You're also going to include the checkpoints for the completion of the project task. And again, I'm reading some of this out of the book, but this is directly where all of this is coming from. You're going to make sure that you have the points down where you're going to check in with your students for each project and each part of the project. And especially when we're talking about the project deadlines, the pieces of the project that are due at certain times, and to help move you forward and to continue to help kids move forward. The presentation schedule. So keep in mind at the end, your kids are going to be presenting, whether it's to whatever audience or resources that you have there, they're going to be presenting their project. So what is that going to look like? How are they going to present it? Is it going to be a whole school environment? Well, they walk through kind of like a poster session as you would see it at NITO or other conferences. Is it going to be something where the kids get up and talk individually? You have to plan all that out on your calendar. The due dates for those projects, like each piece of the project, you're going to need to lay out on this calendar the dates that each of those parts are due. I'm not saying that the calendar is not going to be modified throughout the project, but at least you have an outline, and then once you go back to modify and things are changing, you still have the layout of the rest of what the project's going to look like and when. You're also going to need to put on the calendar the tests or the summative assessments. What is that going to look like? What do those entail? And when are you going to do that? And make sure, and I talked about this in my last video, make sure that you write in time for reflection and for celebration at the end of the project. So you're going to write in those events such as I mentioned before, like the gallery walks, the charrette protocol, tuning protocol. You're going to write those into your calendar. When are the kids going to need to peer, self, and teacher reflect in order to give them enough time to make the modifications to their process and product to have a successful product in the end? And then the celebration. I think the celebration is so important, especially for a big event or a big project like this, because this is going to take you a while and the kids need to be rewarded for their efforts. And to help feel successful. And you don't have to save the celebrations all to the end. Sometimes it's good to do small celebrations as far as reflecting on their growth, and reflecting on the content and learning the content. You can impose small celebrations in there as well. And then the end of the product, what is that going to look like? What is the date for that? You're going to set that on your calendar. And again, as I mentioned, these dates are going to change. They're going to look different. But at least you'll have the plan written out and you can change the dates accordingly, but you just shift them over instead of having to recreate the wheel completely, and you have an outline. This also helps you if you are filling out the calendar. It helps you keep on track, and helps you keep into tune of what you are wanting them to learn, and how well they're learning what you are asking them to learn. And sometimes you might have to add things in. If you feel like your kids are not doing very good at the reflective process or the feedback process, maybe throw another one in, of which they can actually review how to do that process, and going back to giving constructive feedback and effective feedback. So some of those pieces you can add in there. Again, your calendar is going to be outlined, but it needs to be changeable. It needs to be editable. But you need to have something written down, especially when you go to start building your resource group of people, your global presentation people, or your people who work in the community, because they're going to need to know when you are expecting them to come in and for how long. So make sure you get that planned out on your calendar. Again, I just want to remind you before we're done, there is an example of a calendar on page 73, and that one is completely filled out. If you want a template or an empty calendar, that is on page 131 of your book. And there's also examples on the buckinstitutebie.org of some different ones, and that you can check out and read through as you are filling yours out. But the best resource you have to fill out your calendar is this. So you're going to look through all these pieces that you've already filled out, and you're going to start laying those out into a timeline or a calendar. Thank you.